Hello and welcome to Nature Days Outdoor Learning Resources, sponsored by the Gower Society. Now my challenge for you today is to make your own weather station. So we're going to make two pieces of equipment which will measure the weather. We've got a wind vane which will tell us the direction the wind is flowing, and we will make a rain gauge to tell us how much rain has fallen. Here's how to make them. For your wind vane you will need a piece of card. You can use a bit of a cereal packet, doesn't matter at all. A pencil which has a rubber on the end, doesn't have to be sharp but it needs to have a rubber. A straw, any type of straw will do, doesn't have to be bendy. A pair of scissors, a stapler and a map pin. Now these are map pins, they're like pins but they're a bit longer than pins you put on a pin board, and they've got a big end. That's just to save your thumbs. You can use a normal pin that you use for sewing. And here's how you do it. First, take your card and cut a triangle out. Next, where you've cut your triangle, cut two straight lines from the two tips. Then join them together until you make the tail of your wind vane. So now you have your tail and you have your arrowhead. Next, take your straw and you are going to staple these parts to the ends of your straw. So just make sure that your straw is in the middle of your tail vane and staple it in place, trying to make it as straight as you can. Staple a few times until it stays in place, like that. Then do the same for your arrowhead, making sure that it is pointing, it's in the middle and it's pointing in the same direction as the arrow at the back of your wind vane. There, so just make sure when you look from above, they're on the same plane and you haven't got the front tilted at a different angle to the back. So they should all be pointing in the same direction and they should all line up. Then next, we need to make sure that this can swing freely in the wind. And that's what we're going to use our pin for. So take out a pin. Woo. So holding your wind vane upright, put a pin straight down the middle. Now if you're not sure where the middle is, then you can try and balance it, because you do want to try and get the central point. And if your back vane is too heavy, it might end up being a bit closer to the back than you expect. Now if it is too heavy, we can always trim this off. Now I'm going to put this through my straw. Now make sure your fingers are out of the way, because it will come straight through the other side. There it goes. Now take your pencil with the rubber, place that underneath the pin and push the pin in to the rubber. There it goes. Now don't push it in all the way, and you will have to test to make sure it can wheel around freely. There we go. That looks good. And there we have it, our wind vane. Now all we need is to take it outside in the wind and get a compass to work out which direction the wind is blowing. To make your rain gauge, you will need a pop bottle that's empty and you don't want any more, and some kind of container. Now this container can be plastic, not glass, and if you have a spare measuring jug, that would be great, but anything that you can use and leave outside. It's got to be able to fit inside the bottle, so make sure that it isn't too wide. You will also need some scissors. Take your scissors and cut the bottle in half so that you have the top section here, which is 1/3 of the bottle, and 2/3 of the bottle left. So that is your lower half, and this is your top half, okay? Then place your collecting cup inside the bottom half of your bottle. Now, if it's windy, if it's going to be windy, it's really useful to place some stones in the bottom of here so that it doesn't blow over. Or you can even bury it by digging a hole and placing that bottle inside it. Next, take the top of your bottle, turn it upside down to make a funnel, place it inside the lower half, and now when the rain gets caught by the top funnel, it will funnel down and enter this container. Now what I have to do to use this is leave this out overnight, and every day at the same time carefully take the top off, carefully take out the container, pour the water that's collected from the rain into a measuring jug to measure the volume of rain. Or you could get a ruler, place it inside your container here, and measure how many millimeters or centimeters of rain have actually fallen. Then empty out that rainwater, place it back into your rain gauge, make sure that your cup is standing nice and flat, replace the funnel, put it back where you're keeping it to measure, and then come back the next day and do it again. Now, if you write down those rates every single day, then you have a great record of the rainfall in your school, in your garden, or if you're doing it at school, in your school grounds. And that's a great database that you can see. If you do it every day for a year, you can see when you're getting the most rain, when it's the driest, and you can see the pattern in those weather conditions. Now, if you are also doing the wind, you can have a look at wind direction and see if there is a connection between the wind direction and the amount of rainfall that you get. And that data is great for drawing graphs and also for comparing it to the weather forecast to see if it was correct and whether your weather forecast for your area was correct in your garden or your school grounds. So the last thing we have to do is to take it outside, set it up, and take some measurements. I'm just going to place my rain gauge here in the middle of the lawn, and if I think it's going to blow over, I need to put some stones in here. Oh yeah, I think we need to put some stones in. But before I put it out, I'm just going to make sure that there's nothing above it that's going to stop the rain coming down. It's going to intercept the rain. So nope, it's got a clear sky, it's not underneath some trees, so it's a nice open area. So I'm going to leave that there, and then come back tomorrow, take the lid off and empty the container into a jug, or use a ruler to find out how much rain has fallen. If you want to measure the wind direction, then take your wind vane out into your garden or into your school grounds and just hold it up as high as you can. And then the wind should move your wind vane around on your pen. Now just make sure it gets a bit loose, because if it does get too tight, then it won't actually rotate. So wiggle around your pin a bit if it's getting stuck to give it a bit of a bigger hole. And then there it goes. Okay. So it's changing direction. Woo! It's changing direction because I'm behind my house. So the wind is circling here. So you can see it's moving that direction, and then it's moving that direction. But just hold it for a minute or so to get the general idea. It's shifting round towards me. So it's going in this direction. So again, we need something else. We need a compass to see what direction that is. So that direction is actually north. So it's blowing to the north, but with a wind, we always say where it's blowing from. So it's blowing from the south. So we have a southerly wind today. And southerly winds tend to be quite warm. Bit wet, but quite warm. If this was blowing to the north, So if it was blowing from the north and round that way round, the wind was coming from the north up there, we would have a very cold wind because it's coming from the Arctic or from Scandinavia or Scotland, all these cold places. So the fact that we've got a southerly wind coming from the south means we might have a warmer air current, which means we'll have warmer weather, but it's probably going to be wet. So likelihood is it's going to rain. Now there is another piece of apparatus that you could make as well, a bit of equipment. If you look at one of my other videos, you can find out how to measure the wind speed. So you could make yourself a pinwheel or a windsock, and you can use that alongside your wind gauge and your rain gauge in order to do a really good investigation on the weather in your area. So you've got a whole weather station now. Now if you make any of these pieces of equipment, I'd love to see them. So please post them on Twitter, #NatureDays, or on the Facebook page so we can see how your weather stations are looking in your garden. Good luck and enjoy, and don't forget to subscribe and like my channel so you can hear what we're going to do tomorrow for our next Nature Days challenge.